Perry NG. Is he the guy still? Can we fit him in the future under Brian Barry Murphy? Or is it time to move on? We're going to take a tactical, mental and cultural deep dive into what Perry NG under Brian Barry Murphy may look like. Strap in, because this is an interesting one. Yes guys, I'm Si. Welcome back to the channel. Welcome back to Cardiff City World. No messing, let's do it. Buckle up, because we are diving head first into one of the biggest question marks of Cardiff City going on at the moment, and starting the Brian Barry Murphy era, should I say. Is Perry NG still the man for Cardiff City? Once hailed as one of the most consistent and versatile fullbacks in the Championship, now a player whose form has dropped, whose body language has raised questions, and whose long-term place at the club is up for debate. So let's break it all down, tactically, mentally, from the fans' perspective, from the club's angle, from the dressing room, to Brian Barry Murphy's footballing philosophy. The rise of Perry NG. And let's rewind for a bit, right? Perry NG joined Cardiff City from Cymru, a low-key signing at the time. But it quickly became clear that this lad could play. Technically sound, tough, confident, had a bit of aggro about him. Could play right back, centre back, has even stepped into midfield on occasion. And when you look back at some of those earlier seasons, outstanding, like one of the first names on the team sheet. And according to FBref, he was among the top 10% of Championship fullbacks for progressive carries, interceptions and clearances. But that was for the 22 season. He didn't just defend, 22-23, sorry. He didn't just defend though, he was able to get forward. Not necessarily overlapping, but he would invert really well. He would support the fullback really well. He linked up play really well. He even chipped in with a few absolute belters of goals, whether it was free kicks or otherwise. The fans loved him, the managers trusted him, and most importantly, he looked like he loved playing for Cardiff City. So what happened? Where did it start to go wrong? So you fast forward to the past 18 months, and the version of Perry NG that we have seen, it feels like a shadow of the player that started his Cardiff career and played at Cymru. He still plays a lot, but the sharpness, the intensity wasn't there a lot of the time. The aggression sometimes feels forced, not natural. The body language, look, you cannot ignore it. So what is the problem? Is it burnout? He plays 40 games a season, pretty much every season. Is it the injury niggles? He's had a hip problem. He's had other issues where he's had spells out with, some suspect that maybe that is the issue. Is it motivation? And that's a big one. Has the fire gone out? Has he fallen out of love with Cardiff City? Statistically, it's pretty clear. His defensive dual success rate dropped from 64% to 52% per SOFA score. His progressive passes declined by about 25%. His expected assists fell below 0.05 per 90, which was a huge dip from when he was at his peak. He went from one of the most efficient right-sided defenders in the league to at times being frankly a liability for Cardiff last season. But let's have a bit of a data deep dive and look at that 24-25 season. We know we've got the eye test, but let's see what the data tells us. So this is going off FBref SOFA score, and Perry NG still led Cardiff in some key passing stats. In 2024-25 season, especially when it came to progressive passes, he averaged 5.17 progressive passes per 90, the highest for any defender in the squad. He was averaging 74.8 touches per 90 minutes, Only one person, Alex Robertson, was ahead of him in that stat. His pass completion in the final third is 89.3%. He was still the top 3 for total passes in the final third, despite Cardiff's ridiculous conservative shape under Bullet and the lack of structure under Omar Rhys. So going forward, he was still trying to move the ball with purpose. But then here's where the red flags come in from a statistical and data point of view. And this is when you look at those defensive metrics, is when you start to see a bit of an issue. The defensive errors that led to shots or goals, 5, which was the most in the squad among all the defensive players. Ground duels 1, 46.2, which is well below the league average. Tackles 1 when isolated in wide areas, 29.4%, which is a massive drop-off from his peak. But equally, for a fullback, one-on-one, that would be one of his strong suits, and it's a problem. It paints a clear picture. He's still involved in the build-up. He's still a progressive passer. But defensively, his concentration, his execution, it fell off a cliff. So let's talk concentration, positioning, costly moments. And this is the red flags. This is where it gets a bit like... There was multiple goals conceded last season, particularly in the first half of the season, that came directly from Perry NG switching off. Not tracking a runner at the far post, letting players drift in behind him too easily, ball watching, just losing that positional discipline. There was a few different ones where the runner gets in behind, or Perry's too high up, or doesn't recover his position quick enough, completely loses his man at the back post. You know, one simple diagonal, one glance over the shoulder would have solved it. This wasn't a one-off. There was a pattern to it. And look, I don't want to be the guy. I'm not saying everything's Perry NG's fault, blah, 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 blah. At his best, he's a phenomenal footballer. But this is where the fans are starting to worry, because it's not just about form. It's about concentration. It's about focus. He is a senior player in that group. And when a senior player starts making those mistakes, alarm bells do ring. Does he want to be here? And this is a bit uncomfortable, I guess, isn't it? When you look at Perry NG last season, I think it's a fair question to ask. Does he want to be here? Does he want to play for Cardiff City? And I'm not saying he's down tools or anything like that. But what I'm saying is, he hasn't looked like the same player. I remember the snarling tackles, the fist pumps, the aggro, the defiance. It just feels like that's all gone. You don't get the same vibe off him anymore. And it's not just fans noticing it. You speak to people around the club, some will tell you off the record that he's not happy. He's not the same presence around the place. But they all speak highly of him as a person. The contract situation is what it is. I think he's got another 12 months. Whether they give him an extension or something, that's by the by for me at the moment. We have to address the here and now with Perry. In this summer, where Cardiff are talking about improving the culture, the professionalism, and resetting everything, they're definitely going to have to make a decision when it comes to Perry. So let's look at, would he fit into Brian Barry Murphy's system and way of playing? Let's talk tactics. We love it. Look, BBM, he wants technically secure players. Wide players who can create angles, rotate the ball, drag opponents out of position. It's a far cry from booting it long and sitting in a mid or low block. Perry NG at his best has the profile. He's two-footed enough to step inside. He can pick a pass. He's composed under pressure, or at his best he is. I think he needs to raise his game. He can't just rely on past reputation now. He's going to be asked to start attacks. He's going to be asked to take part in the build-up play, sustain pressure, and make smart decisions consistently. In 2024-25, and a little bit in the season before, the consistency was gone. So, let's look at the different options for where he fits under BBM. And when you break it down positionally, like Perry's a very versatile player. And if he does stay at Cardiff under Brian Barry Murphy, he could fit in a number of roles. Because BBM's building a very specific way of playing in some ways, but it's also quite fluid and quite versatile way of playing. Young, hungry, technically assured side. So what's Perry NG's role in that, if he has one? I think it needs to be made crystal clear, and there is a few options. So the first one, is he a right back in BBM system? It's his natural position, but there is competition. You've got, and Ronan Kipakio, a highly rated youngster with pace, strength, attacking drive. BBM may prefer to develop someone like Ronan with a higher upside rather than sticking with a senior player who's had issues with his form. But that isn't to say that Perry NG cannot compete. He is definitely good enough and has the skill set to play and start the build-up play and play the way that Brian Barry Murphy wants. He's a smart guy. He's composed under pressure. But if you keep Perry NG as a right back, does that block Ronan Kipakio's pathway to being a first team right back? It's a big, big debate. But that's not the only other option. We've seen him play in midfield. We've seen him play as a number 6. We've seen him invert into midfield very often during build-up play. Errol Bullock really liked those central overloads and just making him the team very, very, very crowded and difficult to play against. NG's played as a holding midfielder before, and in theory, it suits his traits and his skill set. But a BBM number 6, I think, is the kind of fulcrum of the team. You've got to scan constantly. You've got to pass under pressure. You've got to sprint in both directions. At 28, does Perry have the legs and the tactical sharpness to do 46 games in a number 6 role? Because he's not really a tempo setter. The last thing you want is slow. You don't want to slow Brian Barry Murphy's vertical transitions, because that's going to be a big part of his game. He could be a good cover there, but I don't think he's going to be the first choice or the long-term solution. And then the third option, which I find really interesting, I think it's widely agreed that Cardiff need an experienced centre-back to go alongside the Fish, Darlin, Lawler, all under 25. It's intriguing, isn't it? Because if Cardiff do commit to that young centre-back group, there's 3 of them, you can justify Perry NG as the fourth and sort of experienced head in that. He reads the game really well. He's vocal. He can step into midfield in possession. So he ticks a lot of what Brian Barry Murphy would be looking for in a centre-back. And then when you compare him to Callum Chambers, who I thought looked far more suited to the midfield position than defence last year, NG could actually be the viable centre-back backup. He could be a bit of a financial cheat for Cardiff. Instead of having to buy or loan a centre-back, experienced centre-back, you might already have it. But again, he's not he's not aerially dominant, and he's not lightning quick. So again, it comes with risks. We saw Callum Chambers get exploited because of his lack of pace. I think Perry NG's quicker, and I think Perry NG can do that role. But let's look at the cons of each of those roles. Like at right back, you've got, does he slow down Kipakio's growth? Probably not as explosive as he used to be, and the mental lapses have still been happening. As a number 6, I think he lacks the agility. I do think he's got the stamina, but it's a high intensity role in a Brian Barry Murphy press as that number 6. I'm not sure he's instinctive enough to control the rhythm and the tempo of games. Not a fault of his, really. It's more because he's a right back and it's a very different position and different role on the pitch. Could potentially unbalance that midfield. Right, as a centre-back, I think he ticks a lot of the boxes. You could argue he's maybe a little susceptible in the air, but I don't think that bad. maybe struggles with a high line, maybe. But again, he's not like super slow. Could be caught in isolation against quicker attackers. And I think that's fair. You know, if he was to be isolated one-on-one in a central area like he had been at right back, and they can be done. But anyone can be done by pace or skill. So I don't think. But let's look on that verdict of him fitting into what role and where and etc. If he's staying, the most realistic tactical use, in my opinion, is as a right-sided centre-back in a bit of a hybrid role. Even if that's far from ideal for Perry NG, if he commits himself to really getting his head down and being motivated and getting on board with being a Cardiff City player again and the manager, then I think he can almost drift. He can sometimes play right back if Roland Capacchio's not up to it, and he can then sometimes play as the experienced centre-back with Dylan Lawler or Will Fish. He's good enough to do that. But Brian Barry Murphy's not going to carry in passengers just because of versatility. Perry NG needs to do the right things now to really succeed as a Cardiff City player, if he wants it. But let's look at the mental side of it. Does he still have that drive and that hunger when it comes to Cardiff City? Because we all know, right, form is temporary in both ways. But desire and hunger and mentality, that's something else. And Perry NG used to be like a man possessed. Lung bursting runs, fearless tackles, aggression, shouting at teammates, shouting at the opponents, shouting at the ref. The guy was there. There was an edge to him. Whereas now you flip it, and I think there's almost like a lack of an edge. Last season, when his form slightly picked up, it was the end of the season, when we were really fighting relegation. But he wasn't brilliant. It wasn't like that brilliant defending. It was more, he was winding up his opponents. Bit of the dark arts, I don't mind a bit of that. Late challenge here, a little nudge there, words in the ear. Fans love a bit of shithousery, but that can't be your main trait as a right back. And I felt like he was more focused on that. But it was good to see him being aggressive. And there's an issue. He looks more focused on being the pantomime villain than locking down that side of the pitch. He is capable of both. So what do the club think? What are the club thinking? I think from a club perspective, I don't think it's a massive financial decision in terms of, as he's like a football one as well. Like, he's not on obscene wages, as far as I'm aware, like some of the other players who are on much higher. He's on a solid wage, of course. One of the more senior players in the group. If Brian Barry Murphy is building a young, hungry, youthful squad, does NG align with that? Well, he's going to need a bit of experience as well. He's going to need players who know the club as well and knows what it means to the fans. If he's not going to be tied down by a new deal and he is out of contract next year, then we've got to probably cash in this summer. But if Brian Barry Murphy wants him and backs him to revive himself, the club will have to watch very, very closely during this pre-season. I think he's got weeks, maybe a month, to show that he fits into this project, that he wants it, and they'll make a decision, and he'll make a decision. But like, what do the fans think of Perry NG? And this is a bit of a twist, really. Like, a lot of fans still love him. They still back him. They remember when NG has dragged us through tough games. They remember him clattering into defenders in the last minute, and they remember him giving everything. There's still a sense of he's one of our own, Perry NG. But I think equally there's frustration at the drop-off, frustration at the lapses, the silly bookings, the unnecessary handbags when you're not doing your job individually. As the season wore on and his form did improve slightly, he was ultimately more interested in winding people up than defending properly. So while the love hasn't gone for the fans, I think the patience is wearing thin. However, I don't speak for everybody. I speak for myself. and I give a general opinion of what I see speaking to people on social media. And then, can he rediscover his form? Let's be fair, right? Perry Ng is not done. He's 28. He's vastly experienced, very technically sound. What he needs is a bit of clarity. He needs a manager who backs him or moves him on. He needs a role that suits his strength. And most of all, he needs belief. If Brian Barry Murphy can unlock Perry Ng's belief in himself and in Cardiff City, we might just see the second coming of Perry Ng. But if it's more of the same, unfortunately, I think it's only going one way. Let's have a look at alternatives, replacements, etc. Let's say that Perry Ng doesn't discover his edge. What then? I mean, Cardiff have got options. Dylan Lawler is rising fast and could be an option at right back. Ronan Pacquiao, of course. Brian Barry Murphy may prefer a more attack-minded fullback. Pacquiao at right back would make a lot of sense going forward. Maybe even a new signing. You've got other players like Will Spires. There's free agents knocking about. Perry Ng will have to earn that spot. Reputations will not save him this time round. He will have to earn it. And I fully believe that he has the ability, the mentality and the aggression to do so. I believe in Perry Ng. I just want Perry Ng to believe in himself and believe in the Bluebirds. Wrapping up, what should happen next? Well, he's a player on the edge. He's always on the edge. Perry Ng lives on the edge. He is capable of being a key piece in Brian Barry Murphy's puzzle. In my opinion, he's capable of being the missing piece in the defence. But he's also capable of drifting out of the picture altogether. I do think this summer is a crossroads for him. If he embraces Brian Barry Murphy ways of doing things, the possession, the high tempo, the tactical discipline, then he could thrive. If not, then it's probably best for everyone to shake hands and move on. Because this new Cardiff City is not about sentiment. It's not about what you did. It's about what you do now. It's about standards, culture and belief. It's about togetherness. And it's about being united as Cardiff City. The big question now is, does Perry Ng still have those things in him when it comes to Cardiff City? Let me know in the comments what you think. Again, always give me the context. Do you still believe in Perry Ng? Do you still think he can lead the defensive line under BBM? Do you still think that he can be our first choice right back? Do you think he should be the experienced centre back? Can he function in Brian Barry Murphy's system? Or do you think, thanks, let's just move on? I'm really interested in what you think, because I think it's a real tricky one. I think on his day, exceptional. And I think on his day, at his best, he could be a massive part for Brian Barry Murphy. At his worst, he can be a big problem. Like, share, subscribe, spread the word about Cardiff City World. By fans, for fans. 7 days a week, Bluebirds content. What allows us to do that is the memberships. If you can become a member, please do. Price of a coffee per month. And every single membership makes a huge, huge difference. Like literally, every time we get a member, I send a text or whatever to the boys and I'm like, yeah, another one. Because that is what keeps this channel going and has allowed us now to make 2 videos a day. That's down to you guys. I thank you so much. Thank you for your time. Really enjoyed this one. I think it's a really, really interesting conversation starter. Most of all though, keep the faith. And I'll see you in a bit.